Welcome everyone to the Local Energy Advocates of Western Mass meeting. We are very pleased to have Wright speaking to us about neighborhood electrification. Anne is a longtime activist in many movements, and she brought that experience to Mothers Out Front. She was one of the coordinators early on in the Arlington chapter, which is one of our large active chapters. And she has been leading or a part of our state campaigns for many years as we focus on getting off gas and making the transition happen faster. So she is also out of that work. She and some others worked with RMI, Rocky Mountain Institute, on a program to help municipalities make the transition. And that became the Building Electrification Accelerator organization. Is that the right name
Yep,
still? And
that's right, BEA.
yeah, BEA, and is still central to that organization. It's become a resource for municipalities across the state. So I will share my screen and hand it over to Anne. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. Thanks for having me. And this is so fun to see people from so many different parts of my life, including Sue Kane, who's like I could throw a stone to her house. She really is in my neighborhood. We could talk about electrifying our neighborhood. And people who I worked with, what, Eric, 40 years ago, something like that. This is fun. Great.
But who's
great
counting?
Who's counting, right? Good. Well, I'm here to talk to you about our neighborhood electrification campaign. And next slide. I don't think I have to say too much about Mothers Out Front. Next slide, Andrea. But just to review, Mothers Out Front is a national organization whose mission is to build the power of mothers and others by organizing them to take action and transform unjust and dangerous energy systems so all children live, play, and learn in a healthy climate. And that's a picture of Arlington Mothers Out Front in action. Mothers Out Front National is in about 7 states, I think, and we have about 20 active chapters in Massachusetts. Next slide. And just about a year ago, Mothers Out Front Massachusetts started a new campaign at our statewide assembly. We passed a proposal to take on a new campaign called Clean Affordable Heat Now, and it has 3 components. First, Andrea, is the pipelines tactic, where some people are working to stop new large gas pipelines coming into our state. Second bullet is neighborhood electrification, and that's the one I'm going to talk to you about today. We want to build momentum and pressure for neighborhood electrification or networked geothermal through local efforts. And third, this all ties to legislation. We want to pass legislation that will help the transition away from fossil fuels in buildings, to both of the, and help both of those first 2 tactics move faster. So next slide. So what are some of the problems with gas? I'm not going to go into what's the problem with gas as a fossil fuel. That's another tutorial, that's another webinar. But my suspicion, knowing a lot of you, is that you all know the problem we have with gas is that it causes great emissions, even rivaling carbon dioxide release, and we've got to get off of it. So that's what we are tackling. So next slide to get into that. So one problem that's become really clear over the last couple of years is that we're really starting to pay more and more for we're paying more for less gas. And as you can see in this slide, over the past 20 plus years, fewer people are on gas, with a bit of a spike around 2008. But people are getting off gas, especially in the last couple of years when people are electrifying. But we're paying more and more for gas. And you can see that in the green blue line going up. And in particular, since 2020, that's really spiked. And we don't have to convince anybody of that. It's in the news. Even if you're not on gas, you've heard that gas prices are spiking. It's supposed to be up like 85%, like sort of this year. It's in the middle of a big spike. Next slide. And the other element of this is we now pay a lot more for pipes or for what they call delivery than for the actual gas itself. It used to be in the 80s, the gas cost was just about 53% of our bill, with 47% for delivery. And by delivery, they mean that's really a word on your bill that means infrastructure. So it can include laying those big pipes down, repairing pipes that are leaking so much they're not working anymore, et cetera. So, and you can see very similar to the last slide, the spike for that, it spiked a lot for the infrastructure cost in the last 5 years, which isn't a surprise because it's related to us. This is causing a lot of the spike in our prices that I just showed in the last slide. So next slide. We know that we need to and will transition off gas. But how we do that has really big implications on the cost and on the equity. So if an individual homeowner decides to electrify their house or apartment because they care about the climate, or they want cleaner indoor air, or they want air conditioning, which is more and more required these days, that's great for reducing emissions, but it's not great for reducing costs of the gas system because as we saw in the last slide, a huge percentage of that cost is the system, the infrastructure. Random home electrification, like I did in half of my house, does not allow us to retire any gas pumps and shrink the overall gas system. It's kind of obvious when you think about it. That means as more and more of these houses in the graphic here get off gas, the expensive fixed costs for operations, pipe maintenance, and pipe replacement will remain the same. It's also, random home electrification is also not great for equity. As people who can afford to electrify their homes leave the gas system, there are fewer and fewer, as this graphic shows, fewer and fewer gas customers there to remain to shoulder these high fixed costs. So the gas bills of the remaining customers will go way up. And who are those remaining customers? Mostly they're going to be renters and lower income folks who can't afford to electrify their homes. So next slide. So there's the problem. Why are we doing local education to promote getting off gas and transitioning to all electric homes? Why are we not, this is exploring our tactic. Why are we not just like lobbying the gas companies, which we have done back like during COVID, we did a big lobbying of the gas companies and education around that. Or why are we not just trying to pass laws? Let's just pass a law to require transitioning our buildings off of fossil fuels. Those are possible tactics and good tactics. But as you know, big campaigns need more than one tactic. You need to hit them from all sides and just keep on going. But the answer to this is that first and foremost, the gas companies default to very costly pipe replacements because they earn the companies a much higher profit margin than simply repairing the leaks. The time is ripe now to do this work because the 2024 climate law gives the DPU, or Department of Public Utilities, who is the gas company's boss, more tools to stop pipe replacements in street segments and to require non-pipeline alternatives, or what I will call NPAs. A non-pipeline alternative is sort of an odd term that they coined, that the DPU, I guess, coined for replacing gas pipes with something other than gas pipes. It could be electrifying the house through geothermal. It could be heat pumps. It could, I think it could even be, I'm not sure, actually, I'm forgetting whether it refers to being repaired. But now the DPU is saying, we may require you, National Grid or Berkeley, to repair a pipe instead of replacing it if we deem that the better solution and the cheaper solution and the necessary solution. And it could require the gas company to make a plan to support each building to fully electrify and then retire the pipe. So this was an order by the DPU put out a year and a half ago. I forget exactly when. And just so you know, it's our money that's being spent to replace or repair these pipelines. There's a program called GSEP, Gas Safety Enhancement Plans, that started almost 10 years ago. It takes a part of our gas payment money and it uses it supposedly to keep the system safer. However, since that program was started, the number of leaks across the state hasn't decreased. As we saw, the price of infrastructure has increased, and there's still gas explosions, including a fatal one in 2018. And the amount of money is huge. They're planning to spend over $40 billion between, I think, last year and 2040, more than twice the size of the Big Dig. And this will work out to be about $24,000 per customer. This money is being used to expand and shore up a system that should be shrinking, since by law we're supposed to be off, pretty much off fossil fuels, except for a few specialty needs for heating, cooling, and transportation in the state by 2050. So those are the reasons. And also, as I list here on the slide, we want to do local campaigns because people don't understand this yet. It's complex stuff. They're intentionally hiding it from us. They're going to resist, and we've seen that in the recent submission of gas plans, pipe replacement plans that were required by the DPU to be submitted on Halloween last year, and they were completely non-compliant with the DPU's orders. Out of hundreds of plans for replacement, there were, get this, only 3 pipeline segments that were deemed viable for electrification or severing a segment off of the gas pipelines, the current system. I just want to check for questions. Are there any major questions that would prevent me from going ahead? Okay, just speak up if I don't want to plow ahead if there's major questions. So next slide, who will pay for electrification? That is a huge question, and I am not really equipped. Nobody is really equipped to answer this. But I can say a few things. The Framingham Thermal Energy Network was a pilot, and the cost of everything is very successful. The cost of everything from drilling the boreholes to installing the water pipes, retrofitting all the homes, were spread across gas ratepayers over time. The DPU has also authorized gas companies to pilot air source heat pump types of neighborhood electrification, including in Winthrop, who I work with. And that also, if it goes through, it's sort of stalled right now, but it should be paid for by ratepayers as well. It's been ordered, those pilots have been ordered by the DPU. But outside of those pilots, the question of who pays has not been determined, and obviously it's going to be a fraught question. With any type of neighborhood electrification, all the buildings will need to be retrofitted, swapping out gas appliances for electric ones, maybe, often, but not necessarily upgrading the electrical panel. Building retrofits can be costly. We don't want to deny that. It's true. But it's not realistic to ask individuals to pay the entire cost because that's expensive and that would slow down the transition. So there are a lot of people that are really seriously exploring this, economists and advocates. One example is a concept called inclusive utility investment, in which utilities pay the upfront cost of the building's retrofits and then recover those costs through a charge on the participant's monthly energy bill. But then that cost, if you sell the house, it goes along with the house and not with you. So it's less sort of a risky thing for any individual. So there are a lot of proponents of that. And that solution is in a bill that's pending in the legislature right now. And Mothers Out Front is supporting that bill. So that's all I can say right now about electrification, but it's being seriously considered.
What's the bill number? Do you have that?
I think I'm not looking at the bill numbers right now, but I believe that's in Governor Healy's bill. Andrew, do you know if that's right? And is it in the Cream bill? You don't know?
I would have to look it up. I don't know off
Yeah.
the top of my head.
Yep. It will, all this is going to roll fairly soon, I think, into some kind of omnibus bill. And so we'll be watching out for that. And if you're on the Mothers Out Front list, you will hear. So next slide. So what's our plan? Our plan, we're a grassroots group. There are lots of roles in trying to advocate for a change like this. There's legislative, there's legal, there's engineering, but Mothers Out Front's superpower is the grassroots work. So that's our tactic. That's where our focus is going to be. And of course, we'll work with those legal or legislative allies. And we, of course, under Andra's excellent leadership, we have the Leg and Reg team, legislative and regulations team. We work on that as well. So I'll talk a little bit about that. We think neighborhood electrification can be picked up as campaigns by local chapters because we have a lot of data and resources we can share. We have data to educate residents and municipal officials on the reasons to retire a segment of gas pipe and electrify those homes. We can show that it can be affordable, and the transition will, in the end, help ratepayers avoid money going into replacements of pipelines that will soon be obsolete, as we explained in one of those other slides. We have important messages about health and safety, and of course, the threat of climate change. And we have real world examples like the Framingham pilot that I just talked about, operating geothermal, and examples from around the country and world. In this work, in our grassroots work, targets for electrification will include both city and town officials and residents anywhere, but especially those in neighborhoods or what we're calling segments, where possible gas pipeline replacements are indicated. And in the next two slides, I'll show you real world examples of this. Next slide, Andra, there we go. So one of our first tactics in this is, at least initially complete or started, it's to expose the gas companies' real slow walking of the DPU's orders to prioritize repairs instead of replacement, and to identify NPAs and start planning to sever sections of the gas system off of the main lines. And here I grab Northampton's data. They have like 1 million columns, but this is a couple columns from Eversource's October 31st submission of their GSEP plans for Northampton in 2026. They also had to submit plans for 2027 through 2030. And just to be brief, their plans were like abysmal. They did not do their homework. They didn't do what DPU asked. It'll be really interesting in a couple of months to see what the DPU says about these plans, where they're really basically like saying we don't care about what you're saying, kind of giving them the brush off. It was pretty amazing. But you can see that on these streets that where they considered these 8 or so streets in Northampton as possible ability to be severed, they analyzed it, although they showed very little work. They didn't show their work like they'd say to you in math class. That the NPA results are non-viable. In other words, either because of financing or engineering, those possibilities were not viable. And in fact, across the state, Eversource said there's not one that is viable. Okay, thanks very much. Next slide. This is from National Grid, and those are the only two we looked at. We didn't get the plans from Berkshire or Unitil, or I think Liberty is the 5th gas company. In Arlington, my town, here are some columns from the National Grid plans, and you can see of these 8 or 9 street segments, they judged these as potential NPAs, whatever that means. I guess, they're like cul-de-sacs, and it's not like Mass Ave. You can't cut Mass Ave off because then nobody would have gas because that's a gas main. But they said, okay, Kenilworth is a one-way street. It could be severed. So these are all yeses. But then in the second column, SIR viable, that's basically like, is it hydraulically, could they engineering wise do it? Only 3 made the cut there. And then they did their financial work. And they used some kind of figures where, again, they didn't show their work. How much would it cost to replace the pipes versus how much it would cost to electrify? And you can see in the gold shading that I did there, they judged the electrification much more expensive than the gas cost estimate, which is questionable. And we generated a lot of comments, very critical comments to the DPU about, show your work. We don't necessarily believe you. And we really drilled down on challenging a lot of their submissions. Okay, so next slide. I could talk about that a lot. We got really great submissions done. Yeah. So people are onto their not doing their homework. So I guess you can flip through these again, Andra. And so again, let's look at our campaign. So how are we going to do this? Here are our tactics, and Martha, who's on the call right now, is one of a leadership team where we're trying to provide resources so we can help chapters do these tactics and actions in their municipalities and statewide. We want people to hold public educationals just like this so people can understand all these concepts and what's really going on. Public visibility, tabling, education of the public, but then also of municipal officials. Get municipal officials to understand it, and then get municipal bodies like city councils or select boards to pass resolutions or warrant articles and the like. Get residents and officials to support priority legislation, of course, that will support neighborhood electrification. And then, as I said before, if possible, organize and educate NPA segment residents. We've got a couple of streets here in Arlington where the residents were like, oh yeah, I could imagine, educating my street and, working with the DPU and the gas company. So next slide. We're getting toward the end. Thanks for your patience. Let me give you some examples of neighborhood electrification work that has gotten some steam behind it already. One of the best examples is from Newton. The Garland Road residents found out in late 2024 that National Grid was proposing replacement of 600 feet of gas pipe on their street, even though there are no known leaks on this section of pipe. And people started talking about it, realizing this might not be the best use of funds. And they spoke against it at a public hearing. And the city council did approve the grant of location. In other words, approved that National Grid could still go ahead with it, but they started organizing and educating. Next slide, they surveyed their residents, and there was widespread support among residents for electrification. They did have some concerns. People do like their gas cooking. They had concern about upfront costs, but all in all, they were willing to go ahead. I'm just going to flip through this quickly. You can study them later if they, I think Andrew will circulate these slides. Capital costs from an economic analysis somebody did, the capital costs of electrifying Garland Road would be 41% lower than pipeline replacement. The 25-year carbon costs would be 73% lower because right now electricity does use some fossil fuels to be generated. And then annual operating costs that they estimated by all those houses on Garland Road would remain flat. So no personal greater cost for the residents. Next slide. I'm sorry?
Sorry to interrupt. Did that estimate of the flat costs, was that calculated before or after the heat pump rate came out?
Oh, before, because that's so
Might be
recent.
worth updating. Yeah.
It would be. That's a good point. Yeah, these slides are a little old. Good point. I will talk to John Sloat, who is one of the people who worked on this. I don't need to go over this. This just shows some of the detail of that economic calculation. And then next slide. I just wanted to tout our Arlington work. We held a public educational at the town library in July. Got maybe 30 people there and got people really talking. We've been talking with our town officials, our sustainability director, our energy advocate, our environmental planner, who then talked to our town manager about this concept of neighborhood electrification. And now we are just about to file. I have the papers right on my table over there. File a warrant article to be voted on at town meeting in this spring, which will really serve to educate people, and not only the people that vote on it for that half an hour or whatever at town meeting in April or May, but also because we're going to be using Mothers Out Front and Sustainable Arlington members to go to all the precinct meetings and talk about this. And we'll get this opportunity, built-in opportunity, to educate about the concept. And that is it. And I'll turn it over to Andrea to facilitate discussion, I guess.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing. If anyone wants to refer to a slide, I'll put it back up. And we have Sally wanting to ask a question, and Will, and a couple others. So let's start with Sally.
Thanks, Sally.
I think Will was first, but it's fine. Okay. All right. So I wasn't clear on neighborhood of electrification in the example of Newton, for example. I'm being redundant. I just edited myself. Are you talking about individual homes in a neighborhood electrifying?
Yes. Yeah, that wouldn't be geothermal or network.
Okay.
Just they calculate heat pumps. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Will.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I'm really energized by this. I could imagine, I would love to go door to door and help organize in my community of Northampton. I'm worried about what you do in the case of one objector who says, no, I want to stay on gas, and
Mhm.
whether that, how the legislation contemplates that, or how we're thinking about that with talking points. Because you could imagine having a 95% adoption rate and that's still not getting you over the line.
Yep. That is a fight that's happening. I believe the people, including Senator Barrett, who's the chair of the TUE committee, who argues that the law says that the obligation to serve is the term. The obligation to serve means that you're obligated to serve heat. You're obligated to provide heat for every house, but not to provide gas. And of course, you know what the gas companies are going to argue. they take the other side, but that is a fight that that sort of is being had, and I think people continue to wrangle over it. Is that enough?
Sorry, I see your hand, but there's other people waiting. Was this a clarifying question about what?
No, you're talking to me. I can wait. I just can't find the hand raise thing. I've been
Oh,
trying to
okay.
find it for the last 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll put you after Eric.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Tina.
Thanks, Anne, for your presentation, and Andrea for all your amazing work, as always. You mentioned that you did an educational event at your town, at the Arlington Town Library, and I'm really curious as to what kinds of things that what you presented and what type. So, kind of dovetailing into what Will mentioned about resistors and people that are overwhelmed with information. And if you show them some of these charts and some of this information, they will just really not understand, the details. What kind of materials did you present people with for educating them on what did that look like in your public?
Yeah, we have a few documents. We have a what is neighborhood electrification, just very basics, so that's understandable by the layperson who isn't an energy nerd. We have a petition that sort of explains it more and is worded like, people react like, oh, I can't afford, you're not going to ask me to buy heat pumps right now, are you? And, we say, no, this is just saying that the state needs to transition slowly, a planned transition. And we are planning a bunch of other resources, affordability, something on affordability, because that's a hot topic, obviously. A lot of, pocketbook issue kind of focus. And Martha, help me out. What else are we planning? I guess financing, that I started to explain a little. Anything else that you can think of, Martha?
I don't have anything off the top of my head.
Yeah. Oh, well, but yeah, I actually, I do. One thing that really worked well at our educational, at the public library community room, was a big map of the Arlington gas leaks and the NPA plans, or the gas pipeline replacements. And we used it as well at Town Day. And, people are always interested, where's my street? I always smell when I walk my dog, I always smell this gas leak. It matters to them. And that's sort of the on-ramp, and it's important. So you start a conversation, does the pipe repair match up with the bad leaks? And here are the SEI leaks, the significant environmental impact leaks. So we're going to try to generate maps like that you could even blow up big for a Town Day table or something, for anybody who would use it.
I think you meant comparing pipe replacements with where the leaks are. Is that right?
Yes, sorry. Yep.
Great. Melanie.
Yeah, along the same sort of question on the educational you did. Did you have a slideshow, Anne, or will there be one available for us to use in the different chapters?
Yep, we had a slideshow, and I used some of these. This slideshow, by the way, lots of different people deserve credit for it. And one or two of the slides is from that slide deck. And yeah, that's actually something, Martha, we should add to our list, is sort of a template slide deck that you could then put in your own local information.
Okay, good.
I would add, I mean, we are going to try to put together these kind of educational PowerPoint slide decks and also other materials. So if you do tabling or you go to town meeting, hopefully you'll have information at different levels. And if you have ways to get back to the Mothers Out Front chapter coordinators and such, and let us know what is this, anything specific that you would like to have. We're going to try to gear it toward what chapters are hoping or feel would be most useful.
Right.
Perfect.
Oh,
Thank you.
Oh, and also templates of resolutions, which are growing. You know, Somerville passed one maybe 2 years ago. We kind of used that in Arlington, but heavily edit it. Just yeah, templates of those as well.
And I just want to put in that, of course, Mothers Out Front is focused on the groups that we've organized already, the municipalities where we have chapters. But we can make all those materials available for anyone to use.
Yeah.
So it's, whatever we develop, we'll share. So, Eric.
Well, thank you, Anne. As before, I remember sharing municipal aggregation slides with you so that we could stand up a program in Harvard, and we're standing on your shoulders again. How do you envision approaching the business community and commercial gas users? You know, there's hospitals and schools and large, commercial users. Well, first of all, there's the political opposition that will come from the business community, I'm sure. But secondly, logistically, is it envisioned that those large users would remain either already are or would be served by mains, and that would still go to allow them to, generate heat and maybe their own electricity, or who's putting that part of the puzzle together, and how is that articulated so that, it's sort of another issue, but it's going to be big.
Yeah, and depending on the municipality, but yes, we haven't focused on this yet. I have to say, with my BEA, Building Electrification Accelerator hat on, we would more deal with that, and your local sustainability directors and the state, I think, are trying to solve some of those problems. But yeah, I don't really have too much intelligent to say about that.
So
although,
therefore, you don't think that there will be political opposition from the, I mean,
well,
yeah.
No, I think there will be. I think you're right. And that is something we would need to deal with politically as this enters into legislation.
One of the reasons that we're choosing to focus on segments of streets in residential neighborhoods is partly because the town centers are going to be much harder to pull off of the gas system.
That's
But
true.
a cul-de-sac, that's easy to snip off. So we're starting with the lower hanging fruit.
Yeah, and it also makes sense to popularize it amongst the residents first, so educate, and therefore that'll be easier when you hit the opposition. Thank you.
Yeah. There also may be technological fixes too as time goes on. Some commercial sectors, like in the Framingham pilot, are served quite well by geothermal, and that's the most efficient way. But yeah, it's not an easy question. Thanks, Eric.
And if I could just add that if the Framingham pilot geothermal network did include residences, but it also included part of the commercial district and maybe part of the municipal. So depending on which avenue you're going, it may be including them in a way that's going to save them money and save energy.
So Lori, you got your hand up. I'm going to take you before Sally because she's already had a question. You're muted.
Sorry, sorry. The hand raised thing changed places on me and I couldn't find it. All right, so I just had a couple of quick questions and a comment. One is I did a quick Google search. I use Berkshire Gas in my neighborhood. We use Berkshire Gas. And if I look up Berkshire Gas, they have a nice list of all of their upcoming pipeline projects, except it's called the Annual Pipeline Modernization Plan. And it lists projects, although most of them were supposed to have started in the fall. There's a note here that if they don't get started soon enough, they might wait till the spring. So it's not clear whether these have been done already or not. And some of them are quite small. The only one listed in Amherst looks like it's a small section of the Pine Grove community, maybe 6 units. I believe those are condos. And I think that pipeline comes right out of my neighborhood or through my neighborhood. I think it's probably part of the same system because it's very near where I am. So there are a lot of small ones and a way to find them. I'm thinking here, what can I do in my community, right? But there's another question, which is there are an awful lot of people, and this touches on the first question, who are concerned about, use of fossil fuels and have already done some sort of conversion. And a lot of those people have done hybrid conversions where they still use gas. In fact, that's why the big reason the gas prices keep going up, right? Because a lot of people still are using, but they're using at a much lower rate than before.
Yep.
So those folks will have recently invested quite a lot of money.
Well, that can be positive too, though. For example, one street that we're working with in Arlington it's maybe 20 houses, maybe 2 or 3 of them have electrified, and maybe 2 more have partially electrified. Mm-hmm. And we're making the argument, and we're trying to get some media on this, that kind of discredits National Grid's very high estimate. They say that street will cost $6 million to electrify. No, $6 million to electrify, but only 2 something to replace the gas pipes. But did they take into account what's already been electrified?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is there are people on that block who will have recently done a $20,000 or $30,000 conversion.
Oh, that they might
still use gas on cold days. Because that's what an awful lot of the heat pumps that are going in are actually hybrid systems that use gas below a certain temperature.
Yeah, I actually do too. But so, I mean, if this were happening on my street, they, in my fantasy land, in the future, they would sever the gas pipe, but fit the rest of my rooms that are currently cold, or when we have guests, we turn on the gas with heat pumps.
Yeah, to take up the slack. Right.
That's right.
Right. But then what happens to the heat loan that these people are still paying off that for a system that no longer exists?
Yeah, that's a financing question. It's a good point. Right. They would feel ripped off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting question.
Sally.
Since I already asked a question, I'm going to defer first to Denise and Darcy.
Okay. Go ahead, Denise.
Oops, there we go. Whoops. Okay, thank you. So, well, I have another question, but Lori, to your point about people who've already electrified, I mean, in a way, this is just preventing more of that happening, right? And that is that people who have enough money and resources can go ahead and electrify, and then everyone else is on the hook for these pipeline replacement costs and the increased cost of gas. So,
No, I
so
agree. It's a good thing.
yeah, so really, yeah, it's true. Some people are gonna be out money, maybe. But that gets me also to another question about cost and how we present this. Uh, my understanding initially with the Newton case was that the analysis showed that electrifying the homes on that section of Gardner Street actually was lower cost than replacing the pipeline. And I don't know about just fixing the leaks on the pipeline, but it's those kinds of cost comparisons that I think are really important to be able to show people to really demonstrate that this is, in their interest.
Yeah, and I mean, there definitely could be blocks in, say, a very poor neighborhood where they're really not insulated well at all, where windows have to be replaced, or else you'll be pouring electric heat out the window, where it might be a little more expensive. But we will have an argument legislatively and with the gas companies about the real cost. You can do anything with numbers and budgets, anything you want. So that's going to be one of our fights. Yeah, it's a good point.
Darcy.
Yeah, I have two questions. One is very short, and that is, what's the lifetime of a pipeline?
Well, I'm told that there are some in Massachusetts that date back to the Civil War, which is kind of mind-blowing. But I think they say 50 or 60 years. So that if we invest in a pipeline now, it takes it way beyond when we're supposed to be off.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I just wondered. I know that pipelines in my neighborhood have gone in the last 30 years since I moved here. But my other question is, do municipalities have to have a role in permitting or whatever? What would be the reason for having municipal legislation? What does the municipality need to do?
Yeah, I didn't mean to say that they have legislation, but it would be more like a resolution or an intent. We haven't written our full warrant. I could read you, to file a warrant article, you just do like a sentence or two, and it says we support the transitioning in Massachusetts and in Arlington from fossil fuels to electric. But then we'll have a longer resolution, but it's only a resolution. That's actually, I may have skipped that part of my presentation. Part of the kind of impetus or arguments that we're putting into this work is that there is growing frustration on the part of municipalities of the kind of the brazen hold that gas companies have over the digging up of our streets and then making decisions about the pipelines. Like when I said that in Newton, the residents said, we want to talk about electrifying, but the city council passed I'm just blanking out on the name I used, but they said, sure, we're going to give you a permit to go ahead and dig up. And people are starting to fight that. And that is one of the bill that addresses this lack of municipal control is one of Mothers Out Front's legislative priorities, because it's really bad and a lot of money and time is wasted. Digging up a street for water like 2 months after you've already dug it up for a gas pipe replacement, for example.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you're bringing a resolution or some kind of legislation to get support from a community, what would be the reason for any opposition on the part of the municipality, other than that, it takes up staff time to figure it out?
there's conservatism and alliance with the gas companies. Our chapter in Waltham, which is the home seat in New England of National Grid, they're not going to, I mean, they're fighting the good fight, but they're not going to make any headway on this with their city councilors. They can educate their residents. They can raise alarm about the gas leaks, which they have in the past. They're good troopers, but yeah, I mean, I think, and I love my gas stove. Does anybody have any other reasons?
Pipeline workers might oppose it.
That's right. Yeah. Carol, you're in a city or a town of Winthrop that is very difficult to make headway in.
Yeah, I know. They're just so conservative, and we all the good people that we got into town council, they just got all kicked out of town council. All terrible people, and they're super conservative, and they don't care about any progress. They probably just like to see everything stay the same, and whatever the utilities like, that just makes sense, and they don't want to hear about anything.
Can I take it in a different direction? What another thing that Darcy's question brings up is that another reason for getting municipal officials to take a stand is a DPU needs to hear from municipal officials. They hear from us activists, but to hear from the municipalities themselves that they want to have more control over this. They want to have input into what's happening on their streets. That it's in, counter to their climate goals in their town. That's the kind of arguments we think need to be made to keep DPU moving in, a positive direction. So
Yeah.
that's another tactic for why we're really targeting municipal officials.
And DPU, I'm sure, hears plenty from the utilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could share a sample resolution with the group, that would be great, and we could send it out to our list.
Sure. Who said that? I didn't see who said that.
Darcy.
Yeah, let us think about what to share. Let me make a note of that. Because the Somerville one is a little old now, and it could be updated with some of our more updated points.
Ellie.
Thank you. So I have, I'm in Montague. It's a small town. It is not a wealthy town. And a lot of people are struggling with their costs, their utility costs and everything else in this county even. So the cost issue is going to be a big one. So I'm wondering, I have several questions. One is, how would we go about, or could somebody help us with calculating the cost of electrification versus new pipelines? And is that total cost in that neighborhood, or is that, can we break it down into how that would, show up for people's costs, like lower delivery costs?
Like the Garland Road economic analysis?
Yeah.
I wish I could. I'm looking for somebody to do that myself for Arlington, say. I mean, wouldn't it be great if we could find a bunch of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed grad students to do it for every community?
Yeah.
It would be amazing.
Maybe we have to write a grant for that.
So then also it would be great if you have could show sample costs of home upgrades and heat pumps and utility costs savings, showing different square feet of, houses.
Yeah, I bet Math Clean Energy Center. I haven't looked in particular at their website for that particular question, but I bet they have that. And who else? I think we could find that.
So
sort of average. I mean, and it would differ rural and
yeah,
level of upkeep of the house itself.
Yeah,
There are lots of calculators out there. All of them are, have their issues. But a lot of them are online. You can just type in your local information, it'll give you something.
Yeah, Sally, be in touch, and maybe with my BEA hat on, I could help with that. I'm not sure.
Okay, we have some other stuff going on in our committee, but I don't know if we can take this on at the moment, but thank you. And thank you for your presentation. It's excellent. And as part of this, I think you mentioned on-bill financing. Is that a possibility to spread out the cost?
Yeah, I mean, the utility investment tool is it's very similar to on-bill financing. And yes, it's a possibility, and it would have to be, I guess, implemented through legislation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Will. Oh, you're muted, Will.
Apologies for that. I wanted to check an assumption implicit in that calculation between let's do a pipeline for 1.5 million or a non-pipeline alternative for, let's say, imagine that you could calculate that to 1 million. I was assuming that there would be an argument that the gas companies should be able to pay that 1 million to the neighborhood and rate base that 1 million, just like they would rate base the 1.5 pipeline. Is that kind of part of the argument? I'm just curious as I'm thinking about surveying, one of those streets in Northampton was 2 blocks down from me, and it's $60,000 per home on that street. I think we could electrify for less, but I'm curious what the case being made there, because you combine that 60,000. I mean, that alone does it obviously, but whatever would be kicked in from that with Mass Save and the heat loan, and you get electrifying that's within reach of many, many households.
Right. I think that is what Garland Road and Newton argued. Don't waste it on putting in pipelines that'll be soon obsolete, but use it to equip all these houses. Now there's sort of a cost of ownership. So if they put electric induction stove in your house, do you own it, or does the state own it, or does the gas company own it? I mean, I think it would need to be given, but then you're responsible for it. It's a legal question, but that is what they were arguing. There are people from Newton here. I don't know if they can represent that. And it's an ongoing discussion. They keep knocking at DPU's door and saying, we're not giving up.
Denise.
Yeah. So one of the issues, of course, is, as Lori said, that a lot of houses have already been electrified. And one of the initial streets that was on our Northampton list was Adair Place, which is no longer on our list. For some reason, it disappeared. But that street has only 11 houses on it, and 4 or 5 of them already have solar panels and are electrified. So really what's left is 7. There is so much on the ground work that needs to be done. And that's something that I would hope that we could actually start doing, is and of course there's a lot of streets to look at. So the best thing is if we had a real concrete idea of, okay, where might it make sense? So it just, it seems like this pushback is so counterproductive, I know, but if there was a way to get some legislation that would at least require, um, you know, a, a, some kind of first cut that would help us focus on reasonable areas. And I don't know if there's another way to do that. If it's just
Well,
to look at the terminal lines in the gas line, do we even have a map of terminal lines so we could start with that pruning?
yeah, there's an outfit that goes sort of deeper, so to speak, on this called what's Mike Walsh's organization called? Sorry, I'm forgetting it, but they're economists. In fact, he graduated from UMass Amherst, and they are going really deep into looking at the lines and how this would be done. And people are thinking on about that as well.
Good.
Yeah.
Melanie?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I read an article by Audrey Schulman just the other day. Yeah, I think we all know who Audrey is. She's with Black Swan Labs now. And she wrote about something we had forgotten about. This is not unprecedented for the gas company to go to every house and change out the appliances. They did it when they switched from coal to gas. And they didn't say that they owned the appliances or the heater. So this has happened before. Of course, they don't have the incentive now of selling the gas, but if they can get the money back like they do from GSEP, why couldn't they get that same money back for electrifying?
Yep.
Hmm.
That was a brilliant article. Yeah, we could send that around
Yeah.
too. She's such a good communicator.
Martha?
One of my frustrations, and I don't have an answer, is the difference between that and now is that they were going from providing coal to providing gas, and the gas companies aren't going to be providing
Right.
anything anymore, and having the electric utilities, and although the two big ones do both, and getting them, forcing these private companies to transition from providing gas to providing electricity so that they can stay in business. How do we make that happen in our capitalist system? But so there are many, many issues, but I was excited to read the article, but it isn't exactly the same, maybe.
No, not exactly, but
But
Right.
there are municipalities where the gas company and the electric company are the same parent company, at least. And those should be, you know, there should be a financial case to be made there.
Well, and I think is that's called integrated energy planning. And Mike Waltz's outfit, the name I'm spacing out on right now, are really pushing it at the state level and trying to talking with people at Mass Clean Energy Center, which is public-private, about that. And I think it's in one of the pieces of legislation. I think it might be in Cynthia Cream's tactical transitions. And I think the Healy bill might address it as well. So we should be looking for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're going to fight against it because they're incentivized to build new pipelines.
Right.
Their rate of return, the rate of equity that's guaranteed on new infrastructure. So that business model is not conducive to getting off of new pipelines for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank Anne for a great presentation and your ability to field questions. It was excellent. And we'll look forward to some follow-up. We'll send out some articles mentioned, and we'll send out your slides. So
Great. Okay. We'll chop the graveyard slides off the bottom, but great. Thank you for organizing this, Andrea. This has been really great. You have a great group, and yeah, let's keep talking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So thank you everyone who came for Anne's presentation. We do have, we'll have 20 minutes now for a LEA business meeting, and some of the topics that we just talked about might be relevant. So